Hi, everyone. I am Reverend Amy Moses Lagos, and it is my great privilege to serve as the quarter-time minister at Free Church Unitarian in Blaine, Washington. This is the recording for the Sunday worship of March 22nd. We are in a very difficult and challenging time right now where we are practicing social distancing because of the spread of COVID-19. For this reason, Unitarian Universalist congregations across the United States are not meeting in their buildings on Sunday mornings for worship. Instead, they are finding alternative ways to connect with one another. So we're trying something new and different today. I will be leading this worship service from my home in Seattle. Thank you so much for being willing to try out something new. I want to let you all know that I am sending you so much love and care in this difficult time. I am truly holding all of you in my heart every day. I hope that even though we're not in the same room together, we can still feel those strong bonds of care and love and connection that we share. Our wonderful accompanist, Jacinda, has recorded music for today's service, and that music is in a separate YouTube video, so hopefully the link was in the email that you received. If you want to hear the music in the order that we usually hear it during our Sunday worship, I will let you know when to pause my video and go over to her video. I also recorded the story for all ages in a separate video, so I will let you know when it's time to listen to that. So if you want to begin your worship experience by hearing a prelude, you are invited to go now to Jacinda's video and listen to her music. Let us enter a sacred time together. This morning, I offer you these opening words written by Florence Caplow. On this strange Sunday, we gather together in new ways, linked to each other through the delicate tracery of electrons and through the invisible bonds of caring and love. Sharing with millions the wondering and fear and uncertainty of this time. May each of us stay well and whole. May each of us find our ground of strength and clarity. May each of us let our hearts break open to new ways of caring for our neighbors as ourselves. May each of us know, even if we are alone, that we are held in a great embrace of love. This is the time in our service when we say the words of our chalice lighting together. So I invite you to say the words with me, and I have my chalice here that I will light after we say our words. We light this chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all creation, the power of love to heal what is broken, and to be grateful for life's blessings each day. Our opening hymn this morning is number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. If you would like to sing the hymn, you are invited to go to Jacinda's video now. After that is the time for all ages, and after that is the offertory. So if you want to follow along, you'll have to do a little bit of jumping around to the different videos. So I will give you a moment to do that. We come now to the time in our service where we share joys and concerns. This is typically a time when members and friends of the congregation are invited to come forward and light a candle to share a joy or concern that you want to share with the community. In this time of social distancing, we are not able to do that, but I want to offer you the same invitation that I offer on other Sundays. I'm going to invite you to take a moment to settle into your seat, become present in this moment. Perhaps close your eyes, have a moment of stillness, a moment to check in with how you're doing. Let us enter the quiet together. We are all holding so many losses and sorrows right now. And even in the midst of the challenges of the wider community, life goes on and there are new beginnings and things to celebrate. Let us celebrate as a community the joys present here this morning. Let us hold in our hearts those in this congregation and those in the wider world who are struggling and suffering. Let us feel our connections of care and love. Let us feel that we are held in love. Amen. It is time for another hymn. And this hymn is 396, I Know This Rose. I hope you will sing along. The reading this morning is by Lynn Ungar, and the title is Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down, and when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. For the sermon today, I want to tell you about a ritual that I participated in a couple of years ago in 2017. And I hope that learning about this ritual can be helpful in offering us some grounding in these very uncertain and very challenging times that we are in right now. I participated in this ritual when I attended a workshop. It was for the Pacific Northwest gathering of Unitarian Universalist ministers. It was led by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. She is a very well-known theologian, pastor, and teacher in both the Unitarian Universalist and Methodist traditions. Some of you might remember that I spoke about this workshop and this ritual in a sermon that I gave back in May of 2017. And for some of you, this might be the first time that you are hearing of it. Now, when this happened in 2017, many of us were feeling a great sense of loss. And at that time, it was related to the inauguration of Donald Trump as president earlier that year. Many of us were very anxious and worried about the impact that this was going to have on the LGBTQ community, on women's reproductive rights. We were worried about attacks on Muslim and immigrant communities, and we were worried about the harm that would be done to the environment. It was a time of incredible uncertainty and fear and anxiety. Dr. Parker, in her presentation, invited us into several writing exercises. In one of these, she asked us to think about and write about the losses that had occurred in this country since the election in November and the inauguration in January. So I took some deep breaths and I thought back to the past months, and I considered what it felt like to learn about a travel ban on immigrants from certain Muslim majority countries. I thought about news of reductions of environmental regulations, news of infringements on the rights of transgender children and youth. We, in that room, wrote in our journals and notepads the losses that we knew of that were impacting us. We listed loss of safety and security for immigrants and our Muslim neighbors, loss of critical care for people with illnesses and disabilities, devastating harm to the environment, and more. And so as I think back to this ritual and I think about what's going on today, I'm thinking of all the many, many losses that we have experienced just in the last few weeks and months. We have heard heartbreaking, devastating news of losses of human life. For each life lost, the waves of grief and despair ripple out through circles of friends and family members experiencing such pain and suffering. Many people have lost jobs and lost economic security, lost the ability to care for themselves and their family members. We have lost our daily routines that keep us grounded in our lives. We do not have the ability this morning to gather together in person as a religious community, and that is a serious loss. We can't see many of our friends and family in person. Parents who are at home with their children at home have experienced a huge loss of being able to have some quiet time and solitude to themselves, and I can tell you from experience, this is a big challenge. Children have lost school, they've lost their teachers, time with their teachers, and time with their friends. I could go on and on about how much we've lost and not get anywhere close to covering everything. The situation is huge, and it is affecting all of us in so many different ways. So this morning, I invite you to take time to reflect on what losses have you experienced? What comes up for you when you think about this question? How have you been impacted? At the workshop with the ministers, Dr. Parker placed on the wall a large brown tree made of paper, and the tree had roots and a trunk and branches, as trees do. She passed out yellow, orange, and gold paper leaves. We were invited to take a leaf and write a couple of words about the losses we had experienced on our leaf. And then in silence, we went to the tree and placed the leaves on the tree. No, we placed them underneath the tree. And so I want to invite you to imagine your losses as an autumn-colored leaf, and all of our losses as a community, as those leaves that cover the trees in the fall with their vibrant colors, and imagine them gently, gently drifting to the ground and covering the earth with their blanket of vibrant hues. At our next session at the workshop, Dr. Parker invited us to think of a time when something had ended in our own life. There are so many endings we experience throughout our lives. It could be the loss of a job and the sense of identity that goes with that job. An ending could be the death of a close friend or family member. Even when a person becomes a parent, they are ending their life of being childless and saying goodbye to the freedoms that go along with that. Divorce is an ending. Moving to a new home or town or city and saying goodbye to your old home is an ending. I invite you to consider the many endings you have experienced in your life. And then we were invited to write what had begun anew as a result of that ending. Sometimes losses can clear a path for a new opportunity to emerge. It could be the beginning of experiencing joy after months of grief, the beginning of a new career or a life in retirement, beginning one's new life as a single person. It could be beginning to feel at home in a new place. And finally, Dr. Parker invited us to think about the in-between time, when something has ended, but that new thing has not yet emerged. And maybe we can't even imagine what that new beginning is going to look like. It can feel like the ground underneath us is shifting and we can't find our balance. We are, as a society, all in the middle of the in-between time right now. This pandemic has started. We are in the midst of it, and we don't know when it's going to end or how long this situation is going to last. We also really don't know what life is going to look like when we come out on the other side of this. So what we need is tools in our spiritual toolkit to help us stay grounded and engaged in these times. Some of my spiritual tools for being grounded are being in nature, practicing gratitude, eating dark chocolate, singing, worshiping, and spending time with my family and friends. Now, in the circumstances we're in right now, we're not going to be able to do all of the things that we used to do to help care for our mental and spiritual health and well-being. We'll be able to do some of them, but not all. So I want to invite you to consider, what are the tools in your spiritual toolkit? What are those practices that help you care for your mental health and spiritual health? Which one of them can you still do? I bet there are some. Which ones are you not able to do? And are there ways that you can creatively reimagine those practices so that the need that was being met before can still be met, but in a different way? Thank goodness, many of us can still go outside, and the weather for the past few days in Seattle, at least, was cooperating so beautifully. We can still spend time in nature, and we can find that sense of peace that comes along with that. And all of you in Blaine and Whatcom County have so many opportunities to do that. We can still practice gratitude and give thanks for the things that we have. And it's so important to do that right now. Other things need to change. Many of us have relied on getting together in person with friends and family as a way of caring for ourselves. And obviously, in a lot of situations, we just can't do that anymore. So we're going to have to get creative and get flexible. You can schedule phone calls and video calls, and we're going to be offering time for Free Church friends to join video conferences and share how things are going and offering our love and support to one another. So I invite you to consider the ways you can be creative about adapting your spiritual tools to fit these new circumstances. We need to find the things that help us stay grounded and help us stay in relationship with our communities. At the conference, Dr. Parker gave us another writing exercise, and she invited us to consider what new energy, movements, and coalitions we saw beginning. Back in 2017, I had joined with others in my faith community to come together to witness for justice and compassion for immigrants, singing, marching, and feeling the power of grace that blesses our movements for love and justice in the world. I remember being at the Women's March with many of you and how what a powerful feeling of solidarity that was. I saw an outpouring of energy to combat the forces of hate and witness for love. And those experiences gave me hope. And this time, there are examples of people all over the world showing such courage and such compassion in their efforts to respond to the human suffering that is caused by this virus. When the first coronavirus cases were identified in the United States, Dr. Helen Chu was working on a Seattle flu study and had collected nasal swabs from residents of Seattle. She requested permission from the federal government to test her samples for COVID-19. She was denied permission. Dr. Chu and her colleagues decided to continue with testing because morally it was the right decision. Their team identified a teenager who tested positive who had not traveled out of the country or had contact with anyone who had traveled out of the country. They showed such courage, and their actions saved lives. Here in Seattle, organizers have created COVID-19 Mutual Aid. It is an online community that coordinates resources and provides support to the most vulnerable of people who are most vulnerable to the infection. This group is focused especially on empowering and supporting people of color, disabled people, the LGBT community, and others with marginalized identities who are especially struggling at this time. People across the country are using social networking sites to ask if their neighbors who are self-isolating need help. They are volunteering to buy groceries and medicine and more. Educational companies have offered free subscriptions to their website content to help the parents who are home with their children. There are, of course, so many more stories of people helping one another, of people demonstrating kindness and compassion, and people coming together for support and solidarity at this time. And so at the workshop, we each received a green leaf. We wrote some of the new beginnings that were giving us hope, and we placed them on the branches of the tree. So I invite you to consider the new beginnings that you have seen. And I invite you to see all of the new beginnings as tiny green buds sprouting on the branches of the trees, slowly growing until they reach their size, covering the tree in beautiful shades of green, expanding with life and new beginnings. Dr. Parker invited us to consider what gifts we bring to the world today and how we can contribute to the growing movements for creative resistance. Together, we wrote our gifts on blue paper in the shape of a winding river. We surrounded the tree with our gifts to water and nurture and help it grow. Our gifts nourish the work to heal and repair our hurting world. Right now in today's world, we are all called to do our part to care for the health and well-being of our communities. And that is what we are doing right now by staying in our homes and coming together in this way. Our acts of social distancing are also acts of social solidarity in service of the interdependent web of life. Making sacrifices to stay home is saving lives. Parents are working so hard to care for their children at home. And people are contributing in so many creative and different ways at this time. Authors of children's books are posting online videos of themselves reading their books to bring more cheer into everyone's life. People are using their gifts and skills in creative ways to nurture and support life and health. In this time, when we face such enormous challenges as a community, let us draw strength and energy and renewal from our loving connections to one another. In this time when our everyday routines have been turned upside down, let us find peace and grounding, both in our regular spiritual practices and acts of self-care, and in new creative forms to fit these times. Let us companion one another with love and grace. May we each be granted the strength and energy we need to get through the day, doing our part to protect and care for our interdependent web of life. May we find hope in the acts of kindness and compassion that we see blossoming around us. You are each a part of this caring community, and you can count on this community for support. May we all feel ourselves held in a deep and abiding love. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning is number 108, My Life Flows On. This morning I offer you these closing words. As you go forth, may you be like the branches of the trees, bending but not breaking in the winds of change. May you be like the tree roots, holding strong and steady through calm and stormy weather alike. May you be like the leaves growing in the springtime, full of life and new beginnings. May you be like the river, watering and nourishing the life around you. May we join our gifts with others to bless and nurture our sacred, interconnected web of life. Go in peace. And I will sing our closing song, and I hope that you will join me in singing. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Thank you for joining me. Take care, everyone.